Is it 3 years? Ms. Pat, have we heard anything?
We talked to Scott earlier. Aaron, did you get anything else from him other than he got a deed?
Good job.
That's nice. We get that nice aesthetic flavor. Yeah. But I'm always a little leery about family
Just let's see if we can make it.
So we'll see how long. Yes, I did. Nothing that I wanted to do, but stuff that you did.
You were here down there, that's great.
All right, everyone, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, Pat.
Comment. Shoot.
Here.
McNaught. Here. Bobo. Here. Needhammer.
Here.
Place.
Here.
Jeff Ross.
Here.
Monica Ross. Here. Ben Domlin.
Here.
All right, Mr. Chairman, may
Yes.
I make a little acknowledgement of Pat Haber.
Yeah.
This is her last meeting with us that she's going to be retiring.
Okay.
Just would like to personally thank her for all the great work she's done for me in the city over the last 18 years. Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to consent agenda. Move on to the board of absences, correct that? Okay. Approval minutes from March 21st, 2022.
I have a correction. Under good at the order, it said that I indicated that I would be available for the RRC training, and that's not true. I said no to both.
No vote?
Okay.
Like you went down to one of them in Franklin.
But that wasn't the RRC
Oh, okay.
training that we held here.
Okay. I will make that change.
Sure. I confused myself just because I wasn't here.
I understand. Myself as well, that's fine. Any other?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes as presented with the noted corrections from Monica. Second.
A motion, a second. Roll call, Pat.
Needhammer.
Aye.
Place.
Aye.
Monica Ross.
Aye.
Ben Domlin, not here. Bowman.
Aye.
Shoot.
Aye.
Bobo.
Hi.
Move on to here, citizens present for non-agenda items. Let's move on to reports, officers, boards, and standing committees. Scott.
The short-term rental, work second, session was held, and the city commission scheduled third, which will be on June 21st at 5:30. The commission directed staff to, begin developing a working document or ordinance that they can start to review, and hopefully move forward with getting something in place. All right.
Sounds good, thank you, Scott. Any other? No, okay. All right, there's no unfinished business. We'll move on to new business. I do want to say when I open this to public comment, I'd like everyone to make sure to clearly say your name, your address. Keep your comments to 5 minutes, and please stay on topic. Only talk about the zoning of the project in front of us. Any other personal thing is really not appropriate here. Okay, so let's go on to new business A, development plan on lots on Lake Street. Scott?
Thank you. In May of 2019, the planning commission approved the development plan for the property located on Lake Street owned by Michigan Community Capital. And I provided the minutes of that meeting for you in the packet. This property is approximately a little less than an acre with 227 feet. Fronting on Lake Street, 198 feet. State Street is located in the central business district. The approved plan was for a 27,075 square foot, 3-story mixed use building consisting of 9,025 square feet of commercial space on the first floor and a total of 32 apartments on the second and third floors, which consisted of 6 studio, 28 one-bedroom, and 8 2-bedroom. Since the approval of that plan, considerable planning and work has gone on the site. However, a zoning permit for the project was not obtained within 6 months of the development approval, so the Michigan Community Capital has submitted to the planning commission for development approval. The footprint and the site layout are pretty much exactly the same as the previous plan. Some changes to the interior space and mix of the apartment units has been made. The first floor layout has been changed to reduce the commercial space to 6,810 feet, and 5 apartments were added to that first floor. The total number of apartments has increased to 45 units, which will now be comprised of 8 studio units, 21 bedroom units, and 16 two-bedroom units. In the central business district, mixed-use development is principal permitted use per section 1020 of Boyne City zoning ordinance. And while the proposed use is use by right, the planning commission has no discretion in the terms of the proposed use. It may be beneficial for the planning commission to review the intent and purpose of the central business district and applicable planning documents that include or reference this site. First section reference is the intent and purpose of the central business district under section 1010A through L, which you can see it would be a fair statement that this particular development fits well within and is consistent with all of those standards. As per the future land use map, which was updated in 2021, the subject parcels are located within downtown core. The intent and purpose of properties located in downtown core is described in the plan as follows. The downtown core is a historic core of the focal point of the city, providing a mix of retail, office, residential, public uses supported by transportation systems that creates a pedestrian-friendly atmosphere. This area provides easy access to local businesses with the enhanced streetscape environment. This plan promotes continued mixed-use development downtown core to reinforce unique identity and attractive pedestrian environment. This land use category is intended to encourage commercial uses, small-scale retail shopping, entertainment uses, convenience stores, office, personal business, service uses. Residential uses are encouraged on upper floors of commercial buildings. Building heights should generally not exceed 3 stories, except where it can demonstrate additional height will not alter the historic character of downtown. Brick, stone, and masonry will be the primary building materials in this area to give a sense of permanence. The 100 North Lake Street parcel is specifically identified in the 2015 Boyne City Master Plan as a priority development site. The Boyne City Master Plan describes the priority development sites as follows. Priority redevelopment sites as part of the RRC ready community certification process. The city was required to assemble and prioritize potential redevelopment sites. To accomplish this task, the city completed an inventory and review of all potential redevelopment sites in the city. The criteria used for the inclusion into the property list was the properties needed to be located in or close to downtown, needed to be currently vacant or unutilized land, near buildings and properties that have attributes that set it apart, such as historic designation, light location, architecture, or other unique characteristics that would make it an important significant property. As it was designated an RRC site, it was advertised and promoted for development by the city and the state through the MEDC Directed Use program. You can see that marketing materials there, which is okay. Since that plan approval and the plan that property was acquired, this site has been removed from one of our 3 priority sites. So it's not currently being marketed, but as it was an RRC site, that did enable it to be considered favorably for some future grants. The project area is included in the 2006 waterfront master plan, and the plan states following for this area. Lake Street from the river to Noble Street, this area is highly suitable for redevelopment that introduces more residential units into the downtown core and retail and other non-residential as the market can bear. This area from the river to State Street is suggested for mixed use. The plan also included a conceptual design, and it's shown here on that top drawing there. The project area is also included in the 2017 Boyne water plan, which designates the east side of Lake Street for mixed use, and that is the drawing on the bottom. The project site was also specifically included in the 2018 Boyne City parking study as a potential future development site and forecasting the 5-year scenario. The scope of the forecasted development for the project site is as follows. Site 1, potential development, 2 to 3-story mixed use, privately owned site on block 4, 3 floors, 69,960 square feet, 23,320 per floor of mixed use and 22 parking spaces. The proposed use is 3 stories, 27,000 square feet, mixed use with a total of 82 parking spaces. The Boyne on the Water plan also addresses the issue of parking and states the following: by eliminating parking minimums, adopting shared parking agreements, exploring pricing on-street and off-street parking in a variable way, and reducing requirements for parking for individual developments, Boyne City can create a more vibrant, walkable, and dense core that will complement the waterfront development and allow more space along the waterfront, devoted to human scale use rather than asphalt and parking spaces. As mentioned previously, the proposed mixed use is a permitted principal use in the central business district, and as such, the planning commission does not have discretion regarding the use. Proposed building placement, height, lot coverage meet all the applicable requirements of Boyne City Article 20 schedule regulations. In addition to these requirements, the project is subject to the central business district design requirements of section 10.5 and the development plan, the requirements of Article 19. The planning commission's authority and discretion is limited to the application of specific standards listed in these reference sections. One area the planning commission does have discretion is provided in section 19.40T in determining the amount of parking development should provide. The proposed parking for the proposed use is less than the ordinance standards of Article 24, and the applicants have requested the planning commission approve the reduction and or waiver of spaces as per sections 24.20F and 10.5. Now, in 2019, the planning commission reviewed the proposed plan and was asked specifically by the development team if proposed parking was sufficient for proposed uses. It was a finding of the commission that the proposed parking plan was sufficient and indicated that the 20% reduction as per section 24F was applicable, and the planning commission found there was rationale for reducing the parking requirements as per section 10.5. In this case, the exact parking space requirements of the proposed use cannot be determined as the end user of the commercial space is unknown. Given this unknown, assumptions are necessary to calculate parking space counts. As the proposed commercial space is expected to have a mix of commercial uses that are anticipated to include retail, office, and restaurant, the parking requirements are calculated by dividing commercial space into 3 equal parts and calculating individual parking counts for each of the anticipated uses. So here are the calculations. The retail space is 1 space for every 250 square feet, or times 2,270 square feet, 9 spaces. The office is 1 space for every 350 square feet, and that would require 6 spaces. A restaurant would be 1 space for every 100 square feet, and that would be 23 spaces. 2-bedroom unit require 2 spaces each, so that would be 32 spaces. And studio and 1-bedroom require 1.5 spaces per unit, and that would be 44 spaces for a total of 114 total spaces. The application of the 20% reduction is per 24.20F would reduce the total calculated parking to 91 spaces. The proposed project will include the development of 69 off-street private parking spaces and 13 on-street public parking for a total of 82 new parking spaces. While the on-street spaces will remain public, the addition of the spaces, to the overall parking supply can be one of the factors the planning commission considers in making a finding that a lesser number of parking spaces are needed as per 10.5 now. With the 20% reduction as per 2420F and the 82 provided parking spaces, the proposed development would require a waiver of 9 spaces. It should be noted that the changes into the commercial space and residential units resulted in a parking demand reduction of 4 spaces on what was previously approved. Planning Commission can also refer to the 2018 city parking study and make finding. The study includes assessments of the overall study area and the core downtown area. The property is located outside the core area and specifically shown as developed site 1 on map 6 of page 33 of the parking study. The study says the following about the parking turnover and occupancy and parking. Turnover and occupancy summary, the number of spaces occupied at peak time in downtown Boyne City are relatively low. The peak overall occupancy was 39%, with 647 of the 1,622 spaces occupied. When we analyze the results for the core area, we see that the peak overall occupancy increases to 52%, with 408 of 782 spaces occupied. This tells us that there is still sufficient parking in the downtown area available for peak hours, though all parking may not be available for all users. Additionally, the public parking may not be located as most convenient spaces for all destinations. And in parking demand, the current daytime parking situation in the entire study area is calculated to show the overall surplus of 765 spaces. When looking at the core area, this surplus is only 302 spaces. Currently, there is parking located within a couple of blocks of all areas to handle shortage. As development continues and additional businesses come to Boyne City, there is potential for an increase in the intensity, number of people visiting each land use, and overall land use. Therefore, it's important to constantly monitor the parking system and update the demand model if any changes to the parking supply or land use. The updated model should then be compared to occupancy count and the parking system. As suggested by the parking demand summary, the parking demand model was updated and to include the impacts of proposed development of this block, and the existing parking demand was calculated at 30 spaces, and the existing parking supply for the block was calculated at 9 spaces, for a net existing surplus of 29 spaces. Inputting the proposed uses into the model would increase demand for the block to 93 spaces and increase the supply to 128 spaces, for a net surplus of 35 spaces. The proposed development is significantly less floor area, 20,075 versus 69,960, and significantly larger number of parking spaces, 82 versus 22, than was modeled for the site 5-year forecast. Due to these differences, the proposed development has a net surplus of 35 spaces as opposed to the forecast deficit of 103 spaces that was shown in the 5-year scenario shown on map 5.1 page 30. In addition to the parking demand model, the planning commission may consider the availability of parking areas in the vicinity of the project, an inventory of all public parking spaces that were available to the general public within 2 1-minute walk of the parcel was completed. The inventory did not include spaces that were private, handicapped, or reserved. Within a 1-minute walk or 350 feet of the site, there are 108 public parking spaces. Extending out to a 2-minute walk, about 700 feet, there are over 300 spaces. To gauge the current use of the spaces in close proximity to the project, counts were obtained for several of the parking areas around the south parcel. Counts were also obtained referring to area images from 15 different time periods, and 32 counts were conducted over a 35-week period. These counts were done in 2019. I did not see any significant changes to the area parking demand and supply, so I would assume that the numbers are still hold relatively true. Manual counts were completed on weekdays, either in the morning or after 8 a.m. or in the prior to 4:30, the council obtained for the public on River Street and for the State Street from Lake Park, Park Street from State to north of the river, and on River Street from Lake to east, and Lake Street from north to of the river. A total of 150 public parking spaces with Clinton County area. Based on these observations, the average user of the entire county area was just over 35 spaces, which is approximately 23.6% of the available public parking in the county. This would leave an average of 115 spaces, or 76% of the spaces in the county area available. And going to the walk map is right there. It shows you the areas in the county. Now, here's a map of the town areas and the table of those counties. So the process is the application requires development plan review by the planning commission for Article 19. And as previously noted, a very similar plan in scale and layout was approved in May 20th, 2019. And as the project is in the Main Street district, a review of the project by the Main Street committee is required and was completed on March 7th, with no sense attached. I did provide you also with the checklist that was completed when the previous plan was approved, as many of the same criteria and facts are still the same with this project. The only really difference being the parking. I believe we have representatives from commission feedback. So you want to address the commission, or if the commission has any questions for me in regards to the report.
I have one question. When you do the availability of parking and you show the vacancy rate and all that, that's a year-round thing, isn't it? Like, okay, when the marina is open, those spaces are heavily used down by the marina, and they're included in the surplus other times of the year. And so I just wanted to clarify that when you do this, I think it was 39%, you're taking a year-round total, which is not necessarily reflective of the heavy
Oh, yeah,
seasons.
obviously there's going to be days, peak usage days where there's not going to be that many. But looking at it on a typical day, I think is the best way to think about these numbers.
A typical non-summer day.
I would argue that the summer would be a typical weekday. These numbers would hold true, but on the weekends or during events, they probably.
Yeah.
Any other questions about the report?
I have a question. Just in regards to, since this, the change is adding, supposed to be adding more residential versus commercial space. Where with these parking spaces, are they overnight or are they only day? Well, we're looking winter wise, you know,
What part?
some of the overflow parking spaces for any residential that may have to utilize it. Like are these mostly just business hours or are they ones where they could leave?
Are you talking about the public parking spaces? Well, the city ordinances will be effective for public parking.
Okay.
Any other questions about the report? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Boyne is Nate Olmsted. I'm with Integrated Architecture. I'm the project architect for MCC. I apologize. I don't know if Maryland probably from MCC is joining online, so I didn't have an opportunity to share or not, but I don't know the fact that she is or not. I pause for that for a minute.
I didn't see anybody who joined.
Okay. Fair enough. I do want to submit for the record one quick clarification on the document you have. It does state proposed development size of 27,075 square feet. The actual gross square footage we're proposing is 42,795 square feet. I think what happened was the third floor was not calculated to the total. Even so, the development size is the same as it was previously. The calculation that was put together for total retail, office, restaurant, recently commercial space is accurate as well as the count of apartments on various sides, so. The contributing, parking spaces is really the same, and as you noted, the, total number of spaces was reduced with the attributing, factor, which was from 118 to 114. So other than that, we're excited to be part of the team and support, excited for this project, to go forward in the very near future. So I can answer the questions there are.
Yep, and we'll ask you some questions, after the, I open it to the public and then open it up to the board for discussion.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. All right, at this time, I'm going to open this to public comment. Again, if you have, please stand up, say your name and address, and like I said, please keep it to the topic at hand. Is there anyone from the public that has any questions about the project? Yes.
Hi, my name is Sandy Pritchard. I live at 536 East Lincoln. I'm picking up on Monica's comment. I think there is a very different demand in the summer on parking. And I would agree that for every one of the full slips, there are people that occupy those spaces that you're still citing in that increase because of the spaces they're putting in. So maybe we'll be okay. But I think Marty Moody raised a good point in one of the city commission meetings about who's keeping track of all the pluses and the minuses as concessions have been made. For example, country now and then, you know, supposedly going to come over and access a parking lot and so forth. So I think that's kind of an important thing in the big picture, because otherwise we'll be digging holes to underground parking as if all this growth occurs. Nicole asked a question, and I guess I don't know the answer to that about snow plowing and use of public spaces. What is that ordinance?
Okay, just direct questions to
Okay,
me.
I'm sorry.
I will find out and I will get the answer.
All right, so that's my question, because I don't, and for the purposes of this conversation, to know what happens in winter time. And then a question specifically for MCC, when we're talking about the office, retail, and restaurant space that's kind of TBD. At this point, what has been their experience? We're showing a third for this location. And there are other developments that are rather similar. What has that mixed ratio actually turned out to be? Because I know one of the major factors in changing this and adding the extra 5 units was because they were having difficulty in some of their other locations. And in order to make their financial model work, they needed to add and change their mix of units. And you see the number of 2-bedroom units went way up.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other comments from the public? Yes.
So my name is Monica Peck and I live at 1725 Altworth Strasse in Gaylord, Michigan. I'm the current library director, and I would just like to say, to show my support for this project. I think this is definitely a worthwhile cause. I think it's great that the commissioners, up to this point have been supportive of this project. I think it's important to remember that what situation we're in when it comes to housing in our community. I know Aaron had asked us not to get personal, but that's part of the reason why my husband and I don't live in Boyne City. We would love to, but we can't find a place to live. I understand that a project like this isn't a cure-all and it's not going to fix everything, but it certainly does help. So when you're looking at a difference of, what was it, like 8 or 9 parking spaces versus adding this much housing, I just would hope that you would all take that into consideration in your decision-making process. So thank you.
I'm Scott McKenzie, 847 West Division Street. Thank you, Mr. Pearson, a very thorough summary of this project from going years back. Thank you, commissioners, for your willingness to sit in and do this job. It's not an easy one. I think one of the things I heard Mr. McPherson say, going back to 2006, so what is that, 16, 18 years, we've been working on trying to find solutions to workforce and available housing community. It's one of the things on Boyne City goals. Here is now an opportunity for us to address, and I agree with Monica, it's not the silver bullet to solve a problem, but it's a step in the right direction. And for us to finally start working towards something that we've been talking about for all of these years, I think it would behoove us to continue to move forward. We're a very resilient community. If there are issues and problems, we will find ways to solve them, but we won't be able to solve them if we don't move forward and make some progress with this critically important issue in our community. I applaud the efforts to this point. I think taking a step backwards would be a great mistake. I'm in full support of this.
Any other public comment? From the close? Yes, George.
My name is Jordan Peck, the current Boyne City Main Street Executive Director, and I also live at the same address as the Library Director. 1725 Strasse, Gaylord, Michigan. And I just want to speak to the project itself. I applaud the efforts of our Planning Commission as well as our City Commission for taking the steps that they have. Many of our downtown businesses employ individuals that are currently driving home to various cities. And thank you for taking the time. I know there are many people that are in need of this kind of development project here in downtown Boyne City. So I appreciate all that you guys have put into this. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Jane McKenzie, and since spouses are talking, I'm gonna. 847 West Division Street here in Boyne. Just wanted to say I strongly support this project, and I think lacking only 4 spaces in a downtown type location is just a small price to pay to get this increase in housing in Boyne. So, strong support.
All right, this time I'm going to close public comments and I'm going to open it up to the comments of the board. Anyone have any questions on this or discussion? I know a lot of it has been talked about parking. And I do want to state that we did approve a plan that needed more parking spaces than what this new plan requires. And the other thing is that the parking study, when you get a chance to look through it, it does address year-round and peak times, we're really well set according to that. Now, parking studies need to be done over and over and over again to keep current. But as of right now, we have a surplus of spaces, even during peak, but that's also within having to walk 1 or 2 minutes. But that said, there were a few questions about the snow plowing or the removal. Obviously on the private land, that's something that they have to take care of themselves. The public spaces, there are new public spaces, so they would be taken care of by the city, is that correct?
Any public parking would be taken care of by the city, and I believe the on-strike, on-street parking, there is a requirement that 2 a.m. to 7 or something like that, but they cannot. The parking lots don't have that restriction.
Another question that was raised was the mixed use, being able to do a third, and then how this reflects on other projects that you've done. Is that just a good way of totally for parking spaces at this point? I know that was kind of our solution for that.
That was our solution. I don't know if they can give any kind of clarity on what their experience has been.
I can't speak exactly to every single experience that they've had, but I do know that the projects that we have worked on have had a mix, particularly working on a project in Lansing. They have there's a small space there, there's a coffee shop that are committed, our project with them in Mount Pleasant has a grocery store in there, as well as there's a food service entity. So there has been a mix. So yeah, it's very hard to predict commercial spaces. That's what I know of particularly.
Yeah, so I think our strategy to divide it will probably give us a really good average of what we can anticipate.
Okay. Yeah. So does anyone have any questions specific to this project? Any changes? Yes.
I was just curious, I know this is a
mixed material, on the outside as far as siding goes, but is it going to be sort of, is it vinyl or is it going to be hardy board? I believe what is proposed there is a hardy material, vinyl brick. Okay. That's my understanding right now.
And then, for design of the exterior of the building, we actually went back to the design committee for Main Street, which is really stringent with keeping the look of downtown, the look of downtown. And they approved it all, which, I think says a lot, because I know that they're very particular, which is good. But yes,
I've got a few comments. I guess I'd like to say that some of the concerns about peak usage during the summertime, in my experience, are about 6 weeks, from July 1 until August 15. I think that's the most density of tourism within Boyne City. Second of all, I'd like to say there's awful lot of buildings, mixed use. I mean, this is a mixed use development. Awful lot of buildings in downtown Boyne City, residential on top of almost the entire south side of Boyne Avenue is mixed use. I'm looking at this as a mixed use. As far as the distribution of restaurant versus office, and again, looking at downtown typical use, it's about a third. As well. Yeah, and the further you get from the core of the entertainment district, the less likely a restaurant is to survive. I mean, as evidenced by Boyne Rent, you know. So
the project like this will also start to extend that area.
very true, very true. So I'm looking at the available parking here. And you look at 69 private off-street spaces, and you total up the number of spaces required for residences is 76. So you've got a deficiency of 7 for the residential. Okay, so that's can be taken up by the 13 on the street or other parking. And then you have the retail and office, primarily daytime uses. So you've got a little bit of trade-off there that, you know, during the day, hopefully most of the residents may go on at work, driving to their employment, unless the employment is right downtown. So, you know, I'm 23 spaces for the restaurant. Those will be evening or afternoon. So that's kind of the cost up there. As you said, there's a fair number of parking spaces around there. It would only really be the 6 weeks there. Could be too much for that. All restaurant space there.
For parking, though, that's the one advantage of mixed use is being able to utilize parking economically throughout the day when people are working from that.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that's why I'm looking at this, and it's so.
Any questions?
Just one more comment.
Yeah.
I think we need to take into consideration that, you know, we're in 2022, not everybody owns a vehicle, and with the market consideration, you know, I think consider that everybody who lives in that or potentially going to live in that is going to be driving a vehicle. So they could just be working in town and walking to work. So as far as allowing that to go through, I think, you know, we're on the right path and we need to get that area on parking. All right.
This is actually an ordinance question. What does the ordinance say about on the mixed use residential on the ground floor?
The ordinance was changed to allow that.
Okay.
Specifically.
I thought this had come up.
Yeah, and it was amended to allow it with exactly the way they have done it, which is time or presence on the street, so.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott.
Just clarification, Mr. Chair, are we going to what's the process? Do we have to go through the requirements, findings, and do we have to go, or are we just going to go discussion and then to a vote?
Scott, at this point, wouldn't it be best if we went back to the findings? Or at least on the parts that aren't, that don't.
I think the only change in findings would be on that parking reduction. So I would advise the commission to make a new finding in regard to that. And then if the commission agrees with all the previous findings and requirements, then we can adopt those as the.
Do you understand that?
Yes.
I have a question.
So I'm discussing when I need to motion or make a motion and or support and or within the process. Mr. Chair, when do you want me to make my?
I understand. At this point, I just want to find out if anyone has any concerns, and then we'll move on to that. And I think we will just vote on just the parts that will be changing in the findings. Thank you.
I have one, this is just a clarification. And we're assuming that some of these overages in parking will park in a city lot, like the old Blackman lot, probably. Is there an overnight parking issue there for snowplow time? Is overnight parking allowed in the city lots that the city is responsible for plowing?
So, yes.
So would, like, the Falcon lot would be the closest lot to this project.
But I wouldn't even go that far and say, I see a parking issue overnight for this. I believe, in my mind, the residential calculations that our ordinance requires us to have. You are asking for 1.5 spaces per student. I do not see 2 cars per student.
I can't either.
So there's, 4 spaces right there.
Right.
Probably, half of those 1-bedroom units are gonna have 1 vehicle. Which is saying, and those require 1.5. So
Okay, I was just asking for clarification.
yeah, so in other public lots, overnight parking is allowed. I'm not sure about the Boston lot, which is closer. I don't know, Mr. Key, is it overnight parking in that lot?
I don't believe so currently.
But I guess if it became an issue, then it could be something to look at. In my mind, I don't think it's gonna be an issue. I think the residential on-street, the private parking, this facility is providing is gonna be ample to serve their residential purposes.
Jim, do you have any comments about this?
No, I agree with Scott. I think that 69 parking spaces are provided behind the building, 42 apartments. That should be plenty. I mean, we've been working on, this was approved a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and things have gotten worse since then. And this is actually better by 4 parking spots than the original proposal because of the change of commercial, less commercial use. And the housing situation in our community has gotten worse in the last 3 years, far worse. Prices are up. Cost of labor, cost of construction, short-term rentals, everything else. So
Well, did you have any questions?
No, I mean, I definitely am all for this process as well. I agree with Skylar's comment that not everybody's owning a car these days. I guess, it may be included in the bill. It would be wonderful for, and other alternative parking spots, given the entrances and whatnot, maybe bike racks and whatnot, for utilize those sorts of things. But the people that are gonna use this are gonna work here. I strongly feel that they're gonna be, if I had the option of walking to work every day, I totally would, but I have small children, so that's so small. Children's attention, sometimes you believe it or not, you can't do that. But when that time comes, it would be amazing to just be able to walk. I mean, granted, probably not winter time so much, but yeah, I firmly feel that we need to provide housing as much as we can for this community. And so I'm all for supporting this.
Carl, I'd like to ask, do you have any comments on this or any questions? The only question I do have is that will there be electric charging stations installed in that parking facility? Because at this point in time, with the, not with the federal government, but with our governor placing the emphasis on 20% of the vehicles in the future being electric, and we've only got 2 charging stations here in the city right now. And normally a charging station is really part of a residential type of, situation. And has any thought been given to that with respect to putting 10% of those units with our parking spaces with electric charging stations?
So we have not specifically talked about that on this project, but the 2 other projects that I'm involved with MCC on, we are making plans for electric charging stations. At least 2 posts at both projects that are the whole spaces that would be, in general, that I don't think 100% it wasn't total, but they're certainly looking at that and making provisions for that in the other projects.
Cards? Good thing to consider. Well, I think that one of the things that I may bring to the commission itself is that in a lot of ways, Consumers Energy is willing partner with respect to putting these things in terms of underwriting costs. And so I know those 2 charging stations that are over by Gazebo Park are fairly decently utilized. If you take a look at the Meyer inside of Gaylord, they have got a tremendous amount of these things. And I see this nothing as a way of the future. And especially a new development like this, it's primarily going to be younger. It is primarily going to end up being adoption of these electric vehicles in the future. Good, okay. Scott, I think at this point then, let's just take a look right at, section I in the development site plan review standards.
And the central business district standard is section 10.
Okay.
That speaks specifically to the issue of defining the right number of spaces, so that's, take that reserve, the second one for the site plans.
Let's work on the CBD development requirements findings. Letter M first.
On page 4.
Yep. Okay, so what would be for this project? We have a tool at our disposal to be able to reduce it by 20%. Isn't there additional spaces that would need to come as well?
Well, there's 2 sections of the ordinance that become relevant here. That's section 24, 20F, and that's the application of the 20% reduction for mixed use types of developments.
Okay.
And if that is considered and approved, then that would put it down to 91 spaces. And we're providing 2. So under section 10.5L, the planning commission has the ability to reduce the required number of spaces and make a finding that meets both of those criteria. And do that.
Okay. Having discussion about this? Question? Motion?
I'm on I. There's a free, we need the motion.
Yes. I think M is the CBD section.
And
M
the
is
first handout. CBD.
All right, so this is the motion to accept 20% discount.
Yes, it would be application of that and reduction and approval to reduce the required required amount by 9 spaces.
I make a motion to apply the 20% reduction as per the zoning ordinance section 24 from F. And make a motion to approve a waiver of 9 parking spots for this development.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, Pat?
Shoot,
Aye.
McNaughton.
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Needhammer.
Aye.
Place,
Aye.
Jeff Ross,
Aye.
Monica Ross, aye, Van Donlin,
Aye.
Bowman.
Then we still have to work on the standards, correct?
Well,
That'll be referenced.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
the CBD is done, the development plan standards, section 9, parking. Basically, you're approving that it doesn't meet your standard based on the previous.
All right, so at this point, I was, at this point, I was, a motion, for the section I of the review standards. And can we cite the approval of the CBD?
Correct.
Okay.
So moved. How do you want me to word that, Scott?
Well, there's a motion already in this section, so we say allow the reduction of required parking spaces to 69 on-site, 13 public, based on availability surrounding public parking. Presented.
Same motion.
Same motion that was there before.
Same motion.
Okay, I've got a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a second, roll call, Pat?
Needhammer,
Aye.
Place,
Aye.
Jeff Ross,
Aye.
Monica Ross, aye, Van Donlin,
Aye.
Bowman,
Aye.
Shoot,
Aye.
McNaughton, Vogel.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So, do you make one final motion?
Yes.
Adopting, the findings, those were just the specific.
Okay, so we need a motion to adopt the findings in total.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion to adopt, and I have a second from. Roll call, Pat?
Vogel.
Aye.
Needhammer,
Aye.
Place,
Aye.
Jeff Ross,
Aye.
Monica Ross, aye, Van Donlin,
Aye.
Bowman, Shoot,
Aye.
McNaughton, aye. Motion carries.
Got anything else?
That's it.
Let's move on to the new business, B, development for plan amendment for Great Lakes Energy. Yeah.
As you may recall, back in 2020, Great Lakes Energy approached the commission for site plan approval of their expansion of the site. It is almost entirely completed. As they begin operating, they recognize the issue with the public coming to the wrong place and then needing to go back onto the road, come back to the public entrance. It's kind of necessitated the putting in a connection drive between the parking lots. You can see on my staff report, I overlaid on the aerial. Those two driveways are gone and the parking lot is in now. And so it's 24-foot wide driveway next, these two parking lots. The net result is the increase of one parking space with the reconfiguration of these. There is some existing trees that are going to have to be removed. There is a landscape plan that divided. And there are additional lighting that's gonna be, installed for this new drive area. This is an amendment to the existing plan, so basically it comes between, comes to you, for your review, and, you know, the planning commission determines and the proposed amendment is not significant at all the intent of the approved plan and in conformance with the ordinance standards. It is, and can have a mutual agreement with the landowner, they can approve this. The questions or other, I don't have the answer, I believe there are some representatives here. They did go to the EDC LDFA today at noon. I believe they made a recommendation for approval. They also recommended that sidewalk be installed. I believe the future date when connections can be made to the other properties.
Or, is there anything else you'd like to add, or? I think we're good. All right, I will open it up to public comment at this point. Any questions? Inspector? I'll close the public comment, open it up to the board. Yes, yeah.
I can tell you from personal experience, this needs to happen. I love relay synergy, but trying to find out where you need to go over there is not the easiest thing in the world. This literally happened to me the other day when I was trying to get a hold of the tree. So I totally support this decision.
Any other questions or comments about this?
I think it's a plan that needs to happen.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Do you think that it changes, the current plan that they have by adding this?
It's a plus.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
positive.
but I don't think it's substantial enough to have to,
Resubmit,
the
absolutely
whole
not.
plan.
No, if anything, yeah.
Especially,
Yeah, just a quick, I believe, doesn't Melrose Township still own a strip on that parking lot? And I mean, just curious, you guys are all.
They don't own it, it is in another jurisdiction, it's in the Van Wyck Township, but it's owned by Great Lakes.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Question, would there be any changes to the landscape plan? They would replace some trees and.
Yes,
Increase the landscaping.
Yeah, landscape plan was provided.
So there's an increase.
Sure, can we address the recommendation to add a sidewalk? Would that be the appropriate time, Scott? Or is this not a?
I think you talked with the representative and see their feeling on
Any questions to the representative? Yeah.
Yes, can you address your thoughts on the sidewalk that was recommended by the DLF?
Well, as I understand, the sidewalk would have to be board approved. The recommendation can be made to board, Great Lakes Energy Board, but the board would have to approve that. The financial component of that sidewalk. We've done a very preliminary estimate. It's about $50,000 cost for the sidewalk. So we're real, you know, it's that's.
Sure. And I guess the discussion had to be made, the sidewalk would serve a purpose if it connected to Shar-M's building, connected to the Catholic Church, am I correct? You'd want it to connect.
Yeah.
Not a sidewalk going to nowhere.
Yeah,
Correct. Yeah, but there's currently not a sidewalk there.
There's no sidewalk.
no, that would be the whole.
And that's the whole yard.
Whole different ballgame.
And that's not before us today,
No.
but it is a recommendation from one of our boards.
Yeah.
For consideration.
For-
By Great Lakes.
Any other questions? I don't think that this changes, in my opinion, I don't think this changes enough to have to go back to the review. it's definitely a plus or addition. I'm glad that it was able to be discovered as a solution when you're still working on some of it. So, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this as an administrative add to not cause them to resubmit.
It's a site plan amendment.
Okay, approve it as a site plan amendment to not,
As shown on
sorry,
as shown on
as shown on the plan, to not require resubmission of the entire site.
I second that.
Motion and second. Roll call, Pat?
Chu,
Aye.
McNaughton. Vogel,
Aye.
Hammer,
Aye.
Place,
Aye.
Jeff Ross,
Aye.
Monica Ross. Aye. Dan Donlin.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you for this, Scott.
No, that's not it.
All right, let's move on to new business C.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Genesis Church pre-application review. Scott? Yes, likewise.
Okay. The Genesis Church bought the sign buildings, and are submitting to the planning commission a request for a preliminary review. They are looking at a proposal of adding on the back area, kind of an access, stairs and elevator that would access the existing building. This concept has an extension going out to the alley. So it's here to have a discussion. It's here to do that.
Okay. So this point is just a discussion.
Just a discussion.
Okay. All right. We'll open this up to the public first. Anyone have anything to ask?
Yes, Greg Carpenter, Jackway Road, a member of the church. If you guys know the building, okay, the main entrance is coming off Lake Street. There's nowhere there to provide a cutout to drop people off. Okay, so what we are proposing is on the back side of going on the dentist side, I guess that would be the north side, of going to the property line. On the south side, going within 5 foot of the property line, to put a sidewalk going all the way to the front. And going all the way to the back property line, like down the street a little bit, is the garage that's right on that same property line. What we would be doing with this area is allowing parishioners to come through the alley, to come in back. So it's safer to drop off. Also making it alley level to come in and get to an elevator if they're handicapped, to go down into the basement part of the building, and then also up to the main floor. And to provide a little covering in the back, inclusive of the lot line, to get a place out of the rain while you're trying to get through the door. And so this takes care of a safety issue that we have for handicap to be dropped off in front, or they can utilize that in the back, even though the front would be open for people parking and coming over the street. We have no off-street parking whatsoever because it's an old building.
No. Yeah.
And so that's what we want to obtain in that perimeter. It very well could be smaller, you know, but we, being unlimited funds, as churches usually are, we want to come back to these areas and then see when we can get consensus here that it's okay, that we would proceed to design, so we can come in for a full approval. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
All right. Any other public comment? We'll close public comment. I'll bring it up to the board. So Scott, back at the proposed area, there's no parking back there? No. No. Okay.
Did I mention something real quick?
Not really, okay. We'll,
Scott, what are the parking requirements for a church? I mean, because this is,
They are pretty much the same as community center, or lodge, what this was. So this is basically grandfathered into that. If they added space, like, you know, office space or community space, then they would have to meet parking requirements or establish some kind of agreement or have a approach plan. But that's not, this is access only, so if you the parking, use doesn't change.
okay, so that's the real key, is it was a community assembly building.
Yeah.
Prior, and that's still.
And so it's basically, those are the same as what is going to be used now, right?
Okay.
We have a question?
I guess, my question is, as far as economic development within that corridor, as was in our previous information. I don't see a church fitting into that as well as a development of some type, but that's not for us to decide. And Scott was saying parking issues, the parking is not for us to decide because it's being grandfathered in. So, I guess my comment is I wish you best of luck, and I wish that it could have a different use, but that's beyond our scope.
So on the survey, it shows that extension more out to the alley, that is the paved edge of the alley.
Right.
Are there anticipated door openings or?
Yes, there will be a door opening coming right off the alley in the back. So
Somebody
somebody,
swing out into the alley?
it'll swing according to code. Right. Inside. But the other thing is that there'll be a little cove in there. So the door will not be out at the very edge. It'll be a place where someone can get in there underneath the overhang of the building and then come inside.
Yes.
In the ordinance, do we have the tools to even create this kind of variance for them? Is it zero?
On my memo, on the second page there, refers to that section of building placement. And it says buildings may be built half outline, no setbacks, or the average setback for the buildings on the block is determined by the planning commission. The commission may require greater setbacks in such space, and their determination is needed for off-street parking or other requirements. The intent of the placement is to provide a visual as well as transition between this money and our basic district. So you do have the ability to approve of zero setback.
Okay, thank you.
But for this type of use, to be able to utilize the building.
That's fine, Eric.
Any other questions?
Question, is it possible that you could have that door open, like you had, I can't remember what the width of that space is. And you said some.
You mean the front and back,
Yeah,
15 foot.
would it be possible for it to open into the side rather than, you said you probably won't have that entire space covered with this structure you're putting out.
Well, we're kind of going to the max, and then if we can tighten it up on the sides or whatever like that, on when we come back for the final approval, then that's where it would shrink up. But to have, it already has a set of stairs, goes down into the basement. It's got a door on the upper right-hand side to go into the building upstairs. So we would use those openings in the back end to get in. And then in the middle, have an elevator that'll take the downstairs and going back up. And so that, the door doors would not be out at the very back of the, building. They would be set in, within that parameter that we set up. In fact, presently, we're meeting here.
Yeah. I just wondered, I was thinking about the door issue, if it could be facing the sides rather than out into the alley, if that was a possibility.
No,
In your
it
design.
wouldn't. With the way the stairs go down on the south side of the building, they come right out there, that comes up back towards the alley. These, when the door going in to the second floor is on the far side. So it's in the middle where the door would have to be, and it would be easier for somebody in a wheelchair to go directly in at that particular point, or you drop them off, you know, family of 10 or whatever, you drop them off and they go right inside.
Okay, that's my only question.
Yes.
Do you need all 15 feet? And because the average elevator is not 15 feet deep.
True, but the stairs that you have to put into, because let's say, God forbid, there's a fire and you got 100 people in there, they're not all gonna get in the elevator to come out. So you have to have room in there to get a set of stairs from the upper floor out, as well as from the downstairs out. Yes, they will have access on the front of the building. We're trying to cover all bases that way to, let's say in the wintertime, dad comes by and there's a mom and 4 kids. He's gonna stop there and let them off, and he's gonna go find a parking spot, which we talked, like there's like a handshake agreement around. If we would have asked for a 3rd story, then we would have had to go through the parking requirements, and then those handshake agreements would have to be a formal agreement that you guys would approve parking requirements. But we're not adding that space on or anything like that. This is just strictly for safety and an elevator space. We can't put the elevator space inside because they built this building really good. It's a concrete floor. And so we have to add it on the outside of the building. So we hope to not take all the 15 feet up, but we want to know that we could, as a preliminary style, and then get the stairs to go up and the stairs to go down.
We don't want any more square foot created than we make it happen. Currently, there are no stairs from the back, the alley side of the building, from the side.
Well, there is, but there's a metal.
It's not a stair.
But we want to use the same entrance upstairs for parishioners to go upstairs. There is a concrete set of stairs out the back, and so those all protrude into that 15-foot.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a 8-foot wide stair, 2 4-foot wide runs, and a 4-foot corridor that'd be 12 feet. Now, a 6-foot elevator, 8-foot elevator, and a 4-foot corridor, you know, up to 12 feet. So that would be hopefully what you could do, but you'll have to work it out with your designer.
Right, yes.
No, okay, so for this project, for this addition, I'm all for it. I think that it's a really good use, just to get this building used for something.
Yes.
And cleaned up, and just the act of that's gonna be really cool. There's no one needed at this point, to let them know what type of concern. And they'll come back more. Then they'll come back and ask you. What else is? Reasonable request.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. Anyone with anything else to add? You guys kind of have an idea?
Yeah,
We're all
got
for
an
it.
idea that we'll make it as efficient as we can. But in a church, we don't want to have to design it 2 or 3 times.
But you are, I mean, like you said, you are on a budget, trying to figure it out, it's kind of probably even trying to right.
Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to staff report. Scott?
I just wanted to, let you know that, planning department does have a new assistant planner, Boyne. She started, first week of April. She's familiar with the area and, so we made contacting her for planning and zoning needs. Experience with, and she's been doing a great job so far. So, cool. Appreciate it a little more. She just had a lease on the house. So I was just.
Is this past last meeting?
That is pretty sad.
Yeah.
That is.
We'd have had a party for you if we know in
I don't know
advance.
at this point, applications we're doing today, and I understand that there were 4, I believe, that they're looking at, so. Okay. I'll miss you guys, it's been a riot. Yes.
Oh, man.
And I used to say, I am only the recording secretary. I make the decisions.
You're part of the team.
Yeah.
I love the Boyne family.
Now, is there anything else or no? That's all I have. Let's move on to the order. Okay.
Butterfly gardens are moving forward. Kind of waiting on the weather, waiting for my plans to pass brought up, so I know which is which before I start putting them elsewhere. So I'm hoping this week, or next week at the latest to start at the river. I already started down here at the water park and I'll be looking for volunteers, so. I don't know where he's at.
All right. Anything else? Okay, we also have to welcome a new board, Carl. Thank you. Greatly appreciated. Very good. It's good. All right. At this point, I just need a motion for adjournment. Motion.
Second.
G seconds. All those in favor